Good morning. Welcome to the third edition of the Smart Manufacturing event organized by Lux Innovation. My name is Johnny Brevels, and I'm the Director of Company Relations and Support at Lux Innovation. The Smart Manufacturing event is an annual cross-sector gathering of industrial companies from all sectors, ranging from small firms to large corporates. The event focuses on technologies and processes that will support the industry of the future. It aims at sharing the latest technologies among manufacturing companies in Luxembourg, as well as providing information about European trends in the field of digitalization and sustainability. It also highlights the key players in Luxembourg. This event is organized as a series of 5 webinars that all take place this week. Every day, from 11 to 12 a.m., we will address a specific topic. Representatives from the manufacturing industry will share their experience related to digital transformation, in particular in the context of meeting the challenges brought by the current economic and health context. I already take the opportunity for thanking all the speakers for their availability and willingness to share their insights during the various webinars. During the week, you will also have the opportunity to network with service providers through this platform. I encourage you all to use the platform to chat and exchange with other participants and meet potential partners with whom you can embrace the future. Today's session will focus on European trends in the field of digitalization and sustainability. But before welcoming our 2 speakers of the day and giving the scene to the moderator, Mr. Anthony Howard, Cluster Manager of the Automobility Cluster, let me introduce Mr. Frans Fayot, the Minister of the Economy of Luxembourg, who will share a few words with you. I wish you all a fruitful event, and thank you.
Dear guests, it is my pleasure to open the Smart Manufacturing Week organized by our national innovation agency, Lux Innovation. During the lockdown last spring, we had to recognize the vulnerability of our supply and value chains. After decades of deindustrialization in Europe, we obviously need to recreate local supply and value chains. We also need to reduce our CO2 footprint on the long term. As Minister of the Economy, we have started to develop circular economy concepts to slow down the depletion of our national resources. All these efforts aim at reducing the harmful effects of economic growth on the natural environment and biodiversity and making our economy more sustainable. Further, digitalization is also disrupting our traditional ways of designing, producing, and selling our products. We often approach the disruptions induced by the corona crisis, climate change, or digitalization with fear and reluctance to react. However, there are also opportunities if we choose to approach these challenges head-on and calmly. We can then turn them into sources of prosperity. Smart manufacturing is a specific application of the industrial Internet of Things, which allows us to achieve this main goal. I will just give you one example, which speaks for itself. Thanks to the industrial Internet of Things, small series of sophisticated, high-value products machined to individual customer specifications may once again be produced profitably in countries with high salary costs, such as Luxembourg. Luxembourg, like other economies in the Western Hemisphere, can so hope to benefit from reshoring production once delocalized to low-cost countries. Luxembourg has a long tradition of manufacturing in different high-tech sectors, such as automotive, aeronautics, or space, to name just a few. Our public research organizations also continue to develop expertise around the required materials and production processes. Together with Lux Innovation, the university, the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology, and the Industry Federation, we created the Luxembourg Digital Innovation Hub. This structure helps companies to identify the right experts, advisors, and IT solution providers for the digital transformation of companies. Luxembourg has also made the development of its data economy a national priority. We are helping every organization, private or public, to unlock the opportunities offered by the data economy. Industry 4.0 and smart manufacturing are building blocks of this vision. We have, over the last years, implemented the preconditions for a successful data economy, like data centers, a broadband strategy to connect individuals and companies, cybersecurity awareness and capabilities, strong education and research organizations. Beginning of next year, Luxembourg will also put in operation a 10 petaflop supercomputer, which can be used by businesses, public sector and research. Finally, the Ministry of the Economy has in place specific supporting schemes for private investment in research and innovation, which can also be used to develop new smart manufacturing processes. Those support schemes have been completed by temporary measures to meet the particular challenges and needs of the fight against COVID-19. Currently, I also intend to extend the duration of application of these temporary measures to fight the pandemic and stimulate the economy for an additional period of the first 6 months of 2021. All this to assure you that Luxembourg can seriously tackle the upcoming challenges and that together we can initiate the digital transformation to make your processes smarter and more efficient. I wish you interesting and successful exchanges. Rest assured that the government, and in particular the Ministry of the Economy, are ready to support you in your projects that these exchanges will generate.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome from my side as well. I am Antonio Herr, the manager of the Automobility Cluster at Lux Innovation, and I will be your moderator today. First of all, let me thank Minister Fayot for his participation and contribution to the success of the event. I am glad to see that this webinar is followed by a large audience, which is a good sign that the program we have put together this week is drawing a lot of attention. Because of the pandemic, the third edition of the Smart Manufacturing event will be held only virtually. As already introduced by Johnny Brevels, a sequence of 5 webinars will be provided, one each day from 11 to noon, addressing the following topic: technologies and processes, value and supply chain, sustainability, businesses and strategy. Let me share my screen with you so that you can get a better overview of what we are going to share with you. So here again, it's an overview of the agenda we have put together for you. Once again, a webinar will take place every day on the same platform from 11 to noon, and the various subjects we are going to address are shown on the screen. Today, we have the great pleasure to welcome 2 speakers who will provide an in-depth understanding of how the manufacturing industry needs to be transformed to embrace future technological and environmental challenges. The first speaker is Madame Ángeles Orduña, Executive Director of Aspire. Aspire is a European association which is committed to manage and implement the Aspire public-private partnership. It represents more than 150 industrial and research process stakeholders from over a dozen countries spread throughout Europe. Madame Orduña will provide an overview of the process for partners, which is the successor partnership of Aspire, with high target to contribute the process industry share to reach the climate neutrality and circular economy goals. The second speaker is Mr. Juha Aikila, Head of the Robotics and Artificial Intelligence Unit at the European Commission DG Connect. The Directorate General for Communication Network, Content and Technology is the Commission department responsible to develop a digital single market and generate smart, sustainable and inclusive growth in Europe. Mr. Aikila will provide the EU perspective on the development and activities in robotics and its strong interaction with artificial intelligence. Before we get into the subject, a few information about the webinar platform. We have planned around 10 minutes for Q&A with the speaker at the end of the sessions. On the right side of the screen, as you can see it here, you have the possibility to ask a question you might have or like a question asked by other participants. There is also a survey to collect your opinion about the webinar. Through the week, a digital matchmaking platform will offer you the opportunity to network and chat live with providers offering services supporting digital transformation. Here as well, on the right side of the screen, you can see already some companies that are registered. So during the week, if you want to chat with the company, you just need to click on the logo representing the company. The replay video of each webinar will be available online as well for your convenience. We encourage you to make use of those functionalities as we want this session to be as interactive as possible. Now I have the pleasure to give the floor to Madame Orduña, Executive Director of Aspire. Angel, the floor is yours. So normally you are...
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. I think you can see it already. Perfect. Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction and for the invitation to join this event today. As it has been said, I represent Aspire, which is the association that runs the current partnership Aspire, and the association that will run from the private side, of course, the new processes for planet partnership under Horizon Europe. We represent the process industry, and we have moved from 8 sectors that joined together and joined forces to create Aspire to 10 sectors. And now we count also on board with pulp and paper sector and with refining sector. So that's one of the important changes that we've done recently. And we have been developing in the last 2 years a roadmap to transform the European process industry for a sustainable and prosperous society. But then who are we, right? Who do we represent? Aspire is, as I said, the private side. We represent a cross-sectorial association. Our members are in more than 20 European countries. In reality, if we count the plants that they have, we are in more than in the EU 27 in reality. And we have grown from 40 members, from 40 founding members in 2012 to 160 members, more than 160 members currently that are teaming up. And we keep growing. In the next period, and then here we count industrial associations, clusters, industries, SMEs, new sectors, consultancies, HICs, innovation agencies, and of course the research members, which are very, very important. And from now on, the counterpart at the public side will keep being DGR&I, but also with a co-leadership with DG Grow, which is a new addition to our partnership. So our roadmap towards this next generation of the European process industry has defined the transformation levers to achieve the ambition. So we have defined 4 transformation levers, which are industrial symbiosis, process innovation, digitalization, and the non-technological levers. So in process innovation, we include aspects such as electrification, CCU, and other relevant processes. We consider the energy mix and the energy efficiency keeps being, and the energy and resources efficiency keeps being one of the cores of Aspire within the new partnership. This has been translated into 16 innovation areas and 36 innovation programs, which are the programs that our roadmap defines to achieve the ambitions. So this unique cross-sectoral community, and we say it's unique because, of course, there are many sectors in all the different partnerships, but the characteristic of Aspire is that we consider we have a sector on board when we count with the association at European level of that sector plus companies. And then besides that, we have other sectors which are not of this 10. We have companies from energy, from IT, from textile, from other sectors that are also interested to collaborate on an individual basis. So the ambitions are to reach climate neutrality. So our roadmap sets the goal of net zero emissions, CO2 and GHG. Then real circularity, and the goals are near zero landfilling and near zero water discharge. And of course, competitive European processing. If the industries are not competitive, then we go to the outsourcing as it was commented before. So it's important to keep our companies in the European Union. These 36 innovation programs have been are based in the innovation areas, and then we have, as you see, renewable energy integration, heat reuse, electrification, hydrogen. So in the energy mix, hydrogen is seen as something very fundamental also for us. The circularity of materials, circular regions, and of course we count on the skills and jobs also to deliver the non-technological aspects, which are very important because we are talking about growth. But then also the competitive gap analysis, or the analysis of the framework conditions and the standards that are needed to really keep their competitiveness and to achieve the market uptake of the new products that will be developed, which will quite naturally increase their cost. And then we need to ensure the market uptake. Our roadmap develops the innovations from or identify the needed innovations and pathways from TRL 1 to TRL 9. So we move here in these 36 innovation programs. We expect the support from Horizon Europe to reach the TRL 7, in some cases TRL 8. But Horizon Europe doesn't go beyond that. However, we need to, if we want to deliver impact, if we want to deliver these ambitions, we need to reach TRL 9. And here is where we play, we have two key proposals that I will explain today. One is the first of a kind plans, or we call it metaphorically the marbles, and then the hubs for circularity. And these will be very key important points for us, and we will need a blended approach of the funding and financing to really reach those goals. And it's not only Horizon Europe, we want to also get funding for the technologies into from other sources. So here in these 36 innovation programs, how do they translate into the practice or on the content, right? So first, for the first ambition, we want to generate these disruptive new processes that will lead us towards the net zero CO2 emissions. So you see here in the graph, you see which is the aspects that are influencing our industry's processes. And on this climate neutrality ambition, our roadmap includes solutions to move from fossil fuels emissions to green processes through the efficient integration of the renewables and the valorization of process emissions. The processes will need to be adapted to cope for these alternative resources and other these disruptive innovations. So we count on hydrogen, bioenergy, and other. Then when we talk about the circularity ambition, then we talk about upcycling and eco-design. So here you see, what you see here in this graph is the full chain of the resources. So we really want to close the loop. So from the moment the industry takes the primary resources into the industry to create materials, then these are created by the process industry, but then they go to the manufacturing industry, which will create the cars, the tables, the clothes that we wear, and then they will come to us as consumers. So normally what is happening there is that when we talk about recycling, we talk mostly about town cycling. That means that this final waste, it's either incinerated or landfill, or in the best of the cases, it's reused by some other consumer. But then we want to go a step further that nobody is really talking about when we talk to the municipalities, and that is very much needed, and that is upcycling. It means that we need to move from today's scenario of landfilling and incineration to the future scenario where the resources are kept in the same loops, with the same quality, and reintroduced in the industrial system. So as opposed to landfilling waste, we want these waste to become a new resource that is reintroduced in the industrial system. But then this is not enough, because of course this is good for all the materials that are already there. But what happens in future? If we want to reach a real circularity, we need the eco-design. So we need the eco-design of the materials. Our sectors acknowledge that this is very much a monosectorial activity, but there is a point which is very much cross-sectorial, and that is that to really create materials and innovative processes for the materials that are free of toxic elements and can be upcycled more easily in future, then we need new processes, and for that they can work together. And that's what we have included in our roadmap. So you see here that we have a potential, high potential with this partnership to do very important changes that will influence the whole value chain. And when because anything that will happen in our industries will influence how the rest of the value chain will work, and how circular and how climate neutral the whole value chain will become. So let's talk about these two initiatives that I have commented to you at the beginning. So one is the marbles. So the marbles are the first of a kind plants or first of a kind units within a plant. So we expect that in Horizon Europe, our projects will develop key disruptive technologies. But all our sectors acknowledge that there's no single technology that will allow individually to achieve the goal of the 100% reduction of CO2 emissions. This doesn't work like this. So all these technologies that will be developed by our projects will need to be later integrated into a first-of-a-kind plant, and it will be through the integration of these technologies that we will reach the drastic abatement of CO2 or GHG emissions. So these first-of-a-kinds need to reach TRL 9, and it's then when we will be able to have this delivery of the transition towards a climate neutral planet that the Green Deal aims at. So we have identified so far 50 marbles or first of a kind large scale plants in operation, and we aim to launch at least 15 in the period between 2021 and 2030. This will require huge private investments and a huge industry leader commitment. So we have the commitment. Our members are already showing the commitment, but there is also huge support needed to de-risk and accelerate these innovations. And it's not only, as I said before, from Horizon Europe, it's also from other programs like Innovation Fund or Invest EU, or also member states funds. Let me talk to you about the second characteristic, the second initiative that we have, and that is the hubs for circularity. So how do the hubs for circularity work? First, the hubs for circularity are thought for a systemic geographical connection. Why? Because we consider, what we identify is that impact happens somewhere. It doesn't just happen in a project, it happens in a place. So the hubs concept is a self-sustaining economic industrial ecosystem to reach full-scale industrial and urban symbiosis and circular economy. So we want to close the energy, the resource, and the data loops and bring together all the stakeholders in a region or in a specific part of a region, in a specific industrial site, so that they identify what they need. So we need to join together the regional community so that they identify what are their needs, and then they develop sustainable business models. In our roadmap, we identify the need for them to develop the business to territory plans. And they will identify all they need to really develop these circularity models. Some of them will be disruptive innovations that will be channeled through processes for planet cause. Some of them will be other innovations that will be done at local level, and that is fantastic because we want these hubs to really mobilize the ecosystems. We see huge opportunities here for the SMEs. For example, imagine to turn the waste into resources, there will need to be new ways, for example, of sorting out the waste, and these are huge opportunities for the SMEs, but also it will require also investments from the regions or from the municipalities so that these changes are possible at a scale. So these are territorial systemic solutions, and what we aim from Aspire is to facilitate this network of hubs for circularity that will be supported through our roadmap, through our topics, so that they can share this knowledge, they can share tools, and they can grow together and transfer the solutions from one region to another. We acknowledge also that circularity can happen first within the region, but nobody can guarantee that the industry will have all the resources they need within the same region. So the collaboration across regions and the transfers of resources across regions, the streams across regions will also be very, very important. And then we have identified different initiatives there already that are in the way, certain hubs, and they are at different levels of maturity. So there are some starting hubs, so people who really want to achieve these climate neutrality goals or these circularity goals, but they need to start. They need to develop the planning, they need to identify and to gather the community, or they are in the process to do it. There are intermediate hubs which have already gathered the community, which have already a plan in place, and they need to adapt it probably to the new learnings that they will find. And we have some advanced hubs which need to accelerate the innovation so that they really can really achieve their goals. But we have also some mature hubs, some mature initiatives there, like, for example, Kalundborg Symbiosis in Denmark, which is a big reference in all Europe, and I would say in the world, for industrial symbiosis. And then there, these can be kind of lighthouses for the rest of the hubs. But when we talk to them, they say, yeah, but we also need support to accelerate the new challenges that we have, because their plans are renewed from time to time, certainly. Last but not least, it's very important, the non-technological and social innovation, as I said. So here we have initiatives even in our governance structure, to gather all the knowledge from our projects and then translate these into policy recommendations for the policymakers, so that they can set the right framework conditions, so that the products developed, the solutions developed, can really go to market in a competitive way and in an affordable way for the customers, whether it's the discrete manufacturing for the process industry, or the final customer, which are us as citizens. So we need to also see what the market and the consumers need. We also need to see what are the future skills that the labor market will need, what are the future jobs that are needed. And for this, we have currently already an important project, which is Aspire Size. This Aspire Size project is a project which is funded through Erasmus+, and we are gathering all the community of Aspire, and we are developing and identifying which are the jobs and the skills needed for the industrial and urban symbiosis, and the digital skills for the process industry of the future. So initiatives like that will be very important, and we aim at having other. That will also help us to develop all these non-technological frameworks. This was all from my side. Happy to answer any question needed that you have.
Thanks a lot, Angels, for your presentation. So as you said, participants will have the opportunity for a question at the end of the second session that will take place right now. So I remind you that if you want to ask a question, just use the option on the right side of your screen. It's there for that. Now I have the pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Juha Aikila from the UA Commission. Juha, the floor is yours. It looks like we have a small connectivity issue. We had Juha online a few seconds ago. Sorry for the inconvenience. We'll try to reach him again. Please be patient.
Yes, hello. I understand there are some technical issues that I also had, so yes. Yes, while I think we try to solve these technical issues, let me just give you a short introduction about what are current opportunities available at European level. Let me just allow 2 seconds to start my presentation. So, yes, there I am. Okay. So, if you can confirm me that you see the slides, please. Yes, I can see that. So great. So while we try to solve these issues, let me go through quickly some well, what are current opportunities and what is the current evolution of European programs towards Horizon Europe. So yes. Let's speak first about the European Green Deal call, which is a current opportunity that you have available in order to, yes, fund high TRL projects in the area of the Green Deal. Before going into the details of the call, let me speak about the, yes, what's the policy behind the Green Deal call. We are currently finishing Horizon 2020, which has been the current framework, which has been the framework program for research and innovation for the last 7 years. It has had funding for roughly 80 billion in total, and the aim of Horizon 2020 was to bridge the research from the research innovation from the laboratory bench to the market, stimulating economic growth and creating new jobs. Remember that Horizon 2020 was conceived in a period of in the period of the first financial crisis. We are ready now, almost ready now to start Horizon Europe, which is the next framework program, which will start beginning of 2021 and will end at the end of 2027. The Horizon Europe, as the Commission calls it, is not a revolution, it's mostly an evolution. So the aim is quite similar to still fund research and innovation, but with an increased focus on both digital transformation of European economy and also with a stronger focus on the achievement of the sustainable development goals. So the aim is to leave no one behind. Since there were some economies, let's say, in the Horizon 2020, there was a policy decision to devote these resources to a new research innovation call, still under the rules of Horizon 2020, and it's the Green Deal call, focused specifically on what's the new growth strategy for Europe, the European Green Deal. The European Green Deal is a set of policies under a common umbrella, which are covering different areas like mobility, energy, building, zero pollution, toxic-free environment, farm to fork. So to have a growth strategy, which is developing new technologies, new innovation for our industries, with the aim of stay in the boundaries of the planet. So leaving no one behind and having a sustainability of our current growth. The Green Deal call is currently open. It's been open since the 22nd, 23rd of September, when it was published and together with close to the Research Innovation Days. The deadline is the 26th of January, so it's pretty short. We expect the usual maximum time to grant of 8 months, with the first grant signed at the end in Q4 of 2021. The total budget is close to 1 billion euros. They have 10 core areas with 20 different topics and subtopics. So you can see the topics basically from the slide before, where you can see the policy areas of the Green Deal. So you will have different calls for proposals into the different areas. You have all the different project types, research and innovation actions, so medium TRL projects funded at 100%, innovation action at higher TRL level, and coordination and support action to build the community supporting the Green Deal. They are single stage calls. So you will, if you submit for the Green Deal call, you will be required to submit a full proposal of, up 70 pages normally. These are the policy areas that where you can find calls for proposals. Lux Innovation, we are of course happy to support you and help you in if you are applying or if you want to still apply for the call. There's some small differences compared to the normal Horizon 2020. The TRL scale is very well defined, but it can go to up to higher success rates. And in fact, there's a innovation action funded at 50% for hydrogen, which is calling for TRL 8. You have the normal rules, so minimum 3 partners for 3 different member states, but this is not the target. The calls are very large projects, lighthouse projects, and there you will have to build large consortia to apply to these projects. And yes, what these projects are, they are cross-cutting. They cover several thematic areas. You have in a project, for instance, about mobility, which is, for instance, focused on the green transformation of airports. It's all the operations, the access to the airports, all the operation, the operation, the logistics, but also the buildings of the airport has to be improved in order to make the airports greener. You have a short time frame for the project, the normal time 3-4 years, but a very long time perspective. You have to put emphasis on the demonstration of new solutions and technologies, but also social innovation and citizen engagement. Focus needs to be on systemic cross-sectoral approaches, as I said. But yes, we are ready to advise you for special conditions or all you need if you want to apply. Some quick words about Horizon Europe, which is the next framework program, as I explained before. The proposed budget was originally 100 billion euros. Negotiations brought it to, I think it was 84, the last number I saw. There's a pervasive role of digital technologies. There's a strong attention to game-changing innovations coming from SME startups. Addressing the entire TRL scale. There's a clear emphasis and an increased focus on the climate change, on the sustainable development goals, and on supporting the European recovery that we are with a strong focus on resilience. As it was said before, it's very, very important that we start to think about building again local value chains, which can be resilient to stresses coming from the outside, as it has been for the pandemic. And this is the current structure for Horizon Europe. It's very similar to what you have already seen in Horizon 2020. Pillar 1 will still focus on excellent science. Pillar 2 is about global challenges. So you can find health, culture, cybersecurity, digital industry and space, climate, energy, mobility, food bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, environment. These clusters which are developing applied research for the innovation of our companies. And pillar 3, what I was telling you before about the strong support to innovation for SMEs and startups in the European Innovation Council, where you start from very low TRL and you reach the programs aimed for scale up of startups, the EIC Accelerator, which is therefore try to create the new unicorns in Europe. And yes, this is the last slide I had. I'm happy to take questions that you can type in the Q&A tab. And sorry for the beginning, but I was a bit surprised that I had to jump in. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefano, for taking over. Very much appreciated. I guess now we were able to fix the technical issue we were experimenting just before. We have the great pleasure to have Yuka Aikeli from the European Commission online, if I'm not mistaken. So I hope that the connection works good now. You are the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Anthony. My apologies for these problems. I somehow my browser crashed completely, and I was unable to share my presentation. So I hope it will go right now. I'll try to start sharing the presentation. So let's hope that things will work out. And so far, I suppose you don't see my presentation yet, do you?
Not yet.
No. Can you still hear me? I hope you can still hear me.
Yes, we hear you.
Let me just see if... Okay, do you see my presentation now?
It seems that it's appearing. Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So let's hope this will stay on. My apologies once again for this. So thank you very much for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be involved in this webinar. that you're organizing here. So it's indeed a great pleasure to say a few words about how we see robotics and AI and how we see as the main ingredient which will then help develop these technologies, which we see as enabling technologies, and these enabling technologies will then support a number of fields, and notably also manufacturing, which we think is one of the key industries in Europe. So public-private partnerships is one aspect which we think is very important. We've been working with public-private partnerships now for the past 7 years, in fact. Then, of course, as was already mentioned by the previous speaker, the Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program, that is very important for funding, also channeling through these public-private partnerships, the funding. Then I would like to highlight the AI strategy that we have crafted over the past few years, which is a very important part of our overall concept and overall strategy. And I will show them how this all fits in and how it is linked with the AI strategy and how manufacturing also is benefiting from that. Then, of course, going forward, as was already mentioned, Horizon Europe is the next framework program. And finally, I would like to mention the Digital Europe program, which is the new capacity building and deployment oriented program that we have set up in DG Connect. So in the area that I represent, robotics and artificial intelligence, we have a PPP, a public-private partnership called Spark. It's been running since the beginning of 2014. It will finish now at the end of this year. Officially, however, its effect will be felt for many years to come because many of the projects will continue. So it had basically two goals: to develop a strategy for robotics in Europe, and also thereby to provide the Commission with elements for the work programs for Horizon 2020. And secondly, it was a longer term commitment from both sides, the public side, that is the European Union on the one hand, and the private side, which is the robotics community, to invest in this area, to make a longer term commitment. And it brings, of course, together all the key stakeholders, academia, industry, and users. So it combats fragmentation this way. We have invested up to 700 million euros in this partnership, and the European robotics industry has pledged to invest 3 times that amount, 2.1 billion, in this robotics area. Now, just the most recent work program, there were 4 priority areas identified, and one of these areas was agile production. So this shows the importance of manufacturing from our perspective. Also, we had 4 key core technologies, and these core technologies also, of course, include key ingredients that are necessary for manufacturing industries and their use of robotics. And we had various different kinds of actions. Here is a schematic overview. So we had in these all 4 areas, we had research and innovation projects, innovation actions, so more application-oriented actions. We had pilots, large-scale pilots, and digital innovation hub networks in all these areas, including agile production. In fact, we have 2 networks in agile production. Just now, in the summer, we evaluated the last call, and we selected 3 pilots in agile production in this area, up to 20 million euros they have between themselves as the budget. Now, how does this relate to the bigger picture, the AI strategy? You may be a bit surprised that I'm talking about AI and robotics together, but in fact, we see AI and robotics as 2 sides of the same coin. So, in fact, our AI strategy builds on our European strengths, and one of those is actually what we consider to be the leading position in robotics. So we have very strong industrial robotics, but also in many service sectors we're very strong, and we have excellent robotics research in Europe. Other strengths that we build on is of course, the strength in the business-to-business space. We may not be as strong in the business-to-consumer space, but in the business-to-business space, we are actually very strong. And of course, we have all these sectors, like manufacturing, where we have strong industries, and we have a lot of industrial data available, which can be utilized and which can be benefited from in our future activities. So the AI strategy aims at strengthening research and industrial capacity in AI, boosting uptake, but it also addresses non-technological aspects, because we want to make sure that in the EU we can shape the way that artificial intelligence is developed and deployed. So remember that AI robotics, they go hand in hand. We see the two as two sides of the same coin. The latest step in this was the white paper on artificial intelligence. So that was the latest publication. We had the first communication on artificial intelligence already in April 2018. And in this white paper, which is a logical conclusion or continuation, I should say, of the previous activities, we have been building on this, both on these technological and non-technological aspects. It has the twin objective of promoting the uptake of artificial intelligence and addressing the risks associated with the use of artificial intelligence. Trustworthiness is one of the key concepts that we use in this context, and we see that trustworthy AI is something that is a prerequisite for uptake. And uptake, of course, is the prerequisite for the benefits to materialize, be it uptake in industries like manufacturing or uptake in service industries or other fields. This white paper is made up of two main pillars: the ecosystem of excellence and the ecosystem of trust. The ecosystem of trust side is more focused on the regulatory framework. We will be putting forward our proposal for a regulatory framework towards the end of the first quarter of next year. I will not go into that. I will highlight key aspects here from the ecosystem of excellence, which I think are of more interest to this particular webinar. So I would like to particularly highlight in the second point, the testing and experimentation facilities. I'll come back to that presently in a bit more detail. So we want to invest in networks of excellence centers on the one hand, but also testing and experimentation to make sure that we bridge the gap between research and deployment. And of course, our tools here are the new programs Horizon Europe, so the continuation of Horizon 2020, but also the new Digital Europe program, which is a deployment-oriented program. We also emphasize digital innovation hubs. So particularly in the AI area, we want to have in every member state a digital innovation hub specialized in AI or with a strong specialization in AI. And these are, of course, critical for giving advice, spreading the know-how, the knowledge to companies out there so that they can benefit from excellence in robotics and AI. And of course, we continue to work with the private sector. So we are going to have new public-private partnerships in AI, data and robotics, but also a continuation of the Factories of the Future partnership. So this is something that we are currently working on. These partnerships, there are others, but these are the key partnerships that are relevant to the manufacturing area. They are to launch in 2021. So we want to, on the one hand, bring together the current data and robotics partnerships, which are two separate partnerships. We want to bring them together, and we want to expand this to include AI. And this is the work that is undergoing under the remit of my unit. So we want to make sure that these closely linked areas, that they benefit fully from each other and the excellence and advances made in each other. So we want to work them together. At the same time, we are, of course, also building on the Factories of the Future partnership. It will be called the Made in Europe partnership. So that work is going on, of course, in parallel, and we expect this to launch early next year. Now, I would like to also, because this is a new concept to most of you, I would like to conclude by talking about a bit about the Digital Europe program. So this is a program, completely new program, which is focused on capacity building and deployment. And one of the key areas that is supported through this program is artificial intelligence in all its facets, which also, of course, includes, as I mentioned, the robotics aspects. For more than a quarter of the total budget of the Digital Europe program, one of the key concepts we have is this testing and experimentation facilities. So deployment of AI and to boost the take-up. So bridge the gap between research and deployment. So we want this excellent research to translate into marketable products. But it can also support the regulatory framework. So we see this as a tool for certification, potentially also incorporating regulatory sandboxes. We are talking about
large-scale infrastructure, large-scale facilities. So think of, for example, an experimental farm or an experimental manufacturing setting. This way, we want to ensure greater uniformity and greater efficiency of testing and experimentation, and to also achieve effects of scale to make sure that we have sufficient facilities, sufficient different kinds of facilities available. We expect these to be relatively few, so not every member state would have them. There would probably be a handful of them, and we are planning to spend tens of millions on each area. So currently, the thought about the sectors are health, agri-food, manufacturing, and smart communities, plus also a hardware-oriented one on edge AI. Just a couple of potential use cases for testing and experimentation facility in manufacturing. So this would integrate AI in the manufacturing environment and thereby fulfilling then the future needs and current needs already of the sector. It would enable the validation and demonstration of developments in an industrial setting in manufacturing environments. These could also be hybrid environments, both digital and physical. And here are just two examples of use cases. It could be, for example, factory level optimization, or it could be collaborative robotics. And to conclude, I would just highlight a few of the challenges that we see in manufacturing going forward. So combining robotics and artificial intelligence is obviously something that I've already mentioned. It is clear that it's a key challenge. But also co-working, of course, which then goes hand in hand with safety. So this is something that will become more and more important. It is already, we've seen the trends over the years already, and some of our projects have been working on this for many years. These are difficult problems to solve. However, we see this as something that will need to continue, will need to become more and more important, will be crucial for the future. And we also think that the exploitation of industrial data is going to be key going forward. In addition to our robotics and AI activities, we also, of course, have published our data strategy. This came out in February, like our AI white paper. And here we emphasize on the need to share and make data widely available. We see industrial data as key in many ways. It will become more and more important. We see the major data developments actually in the industrial area rather than in the consumer area. And the feedback we also get from robotics companies or the industry overall is that being able to make use of the data is really key and very important. So this in a nutshell, how we approach AI and robotics and how I see the links with manufacturing and smart manufacturing. So thank you very much indeed for your attention. And I apologize once again for the technical problems which prevented me from appearing at my own turn. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks a lot, Joa, for your contribution. The technical issue was fixed, so we could hear you properly well. Thanks for that. And now I would like to open the floor to questions. Actually, I have one for Angels, if she's still with us. I hope so.
Sure.
One comment I got, especially from small companies, is that they have the feeling that going circular is causing more threats than opportunities. What's your opinion about that? And according to you, what could be implemented to change their negative opinion?
I'm not sure what threats they see. So it's a bit difficult to answer. But however, I guess it depends on the point of view. So if we consider the regulations on the companies for recycling, for example, this I understand it can be a hurdle for some companies and especially for SMEs. But if we consider the full ecosystem and how especially innovative SMEs can contribute to develop the solutions for circularity, then our SMEs are finding great opportunities. what we are finding is that in all the partnerships, very often the SMEs are the ones that receive the innovation. In our partnership, the SMEs that are involved are normally the ones that develop innovations that afterwards the large industries can use. And they are developing these innovations with them. And our last progress monitoring reports tell us that the SMEs that are involved in Aspire are growing above the average of the European Union. And what our SMEs tell us is that they are finding in the roadmap the market niches that they needed. They are finding this opportunity to collaborate directly with their customers and to network directly with their customers, and this is giving them great market opportunities. So, of course, it depends very much on the point of view, but in this case, for this type of SMEs, there are huge opportunities by liaising directly with our process industries, the larger ones. So there is a track effect very clear in our partnership for SMEs, a tracking effect. I hope this answers the question, but I'm happy to go from a different point of view if the question was in another direction.
Sure. Thank you, Andreas. Small question as well for Yuva, if I hope he's still connected. Yes, I can see him. What impacts automation and AI will have on jobs and on the economy, especially in high-cost countries? Sometimes people are afraid about losing their job with those new emerging technologies. So what could you answer to that?
So I think it's fair to say that the jury is out. That is, we don't know. We simply don't know what the net effect will be. And there is a lot of concern about this, of course. I think it is clear that AI, robotics, automation, they will both create jobs and also destroy jobs, so to speak. But they will also transform jobs. So I think maybe a few points that I would like to mention in this regard, just to perhaps add a more nuanced picture. On the one hand, of the possibility that a job could be somehow automated does not necessarily mean that it will be, because it is also a question of economics. To what extent does it make sense? To what extent does it cost, etc. One thing that will be very clear in our view is that co-working will become more and more prevalent. So it will be more and more common for humans to work alongside with robots and AI-based systems. So we will have more specialization in tasks. Robots and AI-based systems will take over some tasks, whereas we will be focusing on some other issues. Working together, we will be sharing tasks, we'll be doing different tasks. So not all the tasks will necessarily be performed by humans, and not all of them will be performed by robots or AI-based systems, but both will be involved. And of course, there are also jobs created in the economy. That is for sure the case. So there will be new jobs created because of the development of these technologies. It is also good to remember that typically in such situations, as we've seen from the past, job losses tend to be concentrated. They occur in one place. For example, the department of a factory will get closed, whereas the job gains will be more distributed across the economy. And because they are more distributed across the economy, they are not so easy to see and to locate. So the perception of job losses will be stronger than the perception of job gains. As I said, we simply don't know what the net effect will be. Many of you will have heard the very negative predictions of 47%, as in the Frey and Osborne study from a few years ago. There are those who also work in the field who have very strongly criticized this study on methodological grounds. There are other studies which show a much less strong effect on jobs. So to sum up, there will be jobs created, jobs will be lost, jobs will transform. And I think the third category here is perhaps the one that is most important. And humans will be more and more taking advantage of the skills that they are good at: communication, creativity, entrepreneurship. Those are the kinds of things that will be there. So we don't know yet. We simply don't know yet. But I think that it is important to keep this more nuanced approach in mind, to keep this fact that it is more complex than it would appear at the first instance. It is important to remember that. So there's no need to be too overly concerned about it. There is going to be change, particularly routine jobs. They will change. It's not necessarily low-skilled, high-skilled distinction. It is more about routine and non-routine, the distinction. But we will see gains, we will see losses, and we will see transformation of some jobs.
Thank you, Joa, for your perspective. I would like to remind to people that were experimenting a connectivity issue that the video streamings will be available on the platform, including the video from Minister Fayot. So don't hesitate to go on the platform. It's open all day long. And by the way, you can take the opportunity as well to chat live with the service provider that are registered on the platform as well. We are going slowly to the end of this first webinar session. So Lix Innovation would like to thank Minister Fayot, all the participants, the speaker, and the organizing team for their contribution to the success of this webinar, attended by a large audience coming from Luxembourg and beyond. To conclude, we would like to remind you that Lix Innovation is your contact point for European funding. Building on our long experience of EU funding programs, we are able to respond to questions on where to get up-to-date information on program and calls for project proposal, what programs are the most suitable for you, and where and how to find European partners. Getting access to all this information is complicated. Therefore, you can rely on us to provide guidance, practical information, and assistance. Thanks again to all of you for your participation, and enjoy the week. We hope to see you tomorrow, same time, for the second webinar session. Thank you again, and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.